But it came at it was posted as a different time. Normally, we have 8 o'clock GMT. So, but for some reason, this was put at 7:15. Well, we're trying to be as clear as we can be about it. I guess we could say that this is Francis Donald's image of for cancer, one of them anyway. The other one simply has 6 pillars, but this has the requisite 12. It's all about any kind of temple that you're going to build, any kind of enclosure to house the divine. Now, eventually, we know that all enclosures, because of the absolute freedom of the spirit than which there is nothing else, because of all enclosures will be destroyed. And for us, as human beings, that type of destruction by 7 different means, look into right in there in the early teens, and you'll see the different methods of destroying the egoic lotus. And that leads us to the causal body, beyond the causal body. And it sort of alchemizes the content of the causal body into the spiritual triad. And that is a very important, what can I call it, extraction. Because from that time on, the connection with the monad is very direct, because the temple is gone. The encapsulation, well, in one way, the whole universe, any universe, and there's an infinite number that have been and will forever be, but any universe is also a temple. It is a finitude. It exists only up to certain boundaries. Now, the sign Cancer rules all boundaries and containment. In this particular case, we're looking at an image where the 3 aspects of the human being are pictured in their ever recessing relationship with the 12 great pillars. And for each of these pillars, well, I think you see up here that Neptune is connected with this portal, the big one, and that's Cancer. And opposite it is Saturn, which is related in one sense, at least the esoteric sense, to the far pillar. Always there's a greater recess of aspects of ourselves. And we know what those aspects are, the personality, which is called the tabernacle in the wilderness, kind of the temple in the wilderness. And what is the wilderness except the chaos of ordinary living? And then we have King Solomon's temple, the temple of solar man, which is the temple which, when destroyed, raises all quality that we have somehow garnered, all, well, I'll just stay with quality. We work in the quarries, you know, of life, and we build the stones and polish them for King Solomon's temple. But that only lasts so long. It doesn't mean that any of us is near, especially near, to that relinquishment of the temple, the central middle temple. But the day will come. And then it's important to know that there's another temple, and it's called the Temple of Ezekiel. Now, all of these temples, well, especially, let's say, the central temple of Solomon, or solar man, and the temple of Ezekiel, they are 12-fold. When we get down to the personality, it's kind of a multiple of 12. It's a 4. And we rise through them. Now, one day, when we are ready to begin our journey upon the way of higher evolution, we will pass through the destruction of the temple of Ezekiel as well, and we will be liberated into a sea of fire and into a new kind of very inclusive temple, which has to do with the Father, the Son, or the Holy Ghost. And eventually, as a major monad, we travel on to the cosmic astral plane and to the cosmic mental plane. Some go that way because of the path that they have chosen at the 6th degree, and some will eventually make their way onto the cosmic Buddhic plane, which is called the path which the solar logos is on. Now, all of these are temples in the Cancerian sense, or in a higher archetype of Cancer. And then I have this sense that the path of absolute sonship, which is a great karmic mathematical path, makes its way, although it doesn't tell us that, makes its way to the cosmic atomic plane, where a kind of law is wielded from that very high position. So I guess the important thing to understand is that we will always be breaking through the encompassment which the temple, for all of its good, represents. And our next breakthrough, really, of a major kind, is the causal body itself. For those of us who are seriously, studentially, meditatively, and in terms of service upon the path. Now, let's see. My hope is that, yeah, I have been showing you that one. I also want to go over here to the Jafra illustration. He's not the same kind of occultist. He's deeply spiritual, but he's not the same kind of occultist as Master Decay, nor is he necessarily on that line. And generally what we see in this illustration is grasping hands, which are filled with the spirit of attachment. That attachment has to be overcome. He's reaching for the past. Now the crab is, as we see with the two claws, reaching for the past because the past represents the moon, or the moon represents the past. And it looks to me like the huntress Artemis is part of this. And the idea behind it, I think, is that if you don't keep your personality vehicles clean, clear, uncontaminated, unaffected by illusion, glamour, and Maya, you will go mad. Madness comes from a kind of disorganization through which the moon passed in the previous chain due to a kind of excessive lenience on the part of our planetary logos, and certain lives were released which should have been kept in confinement. There's that Cancerian note again of confinement, at least in the early days. So our task here is to avoid attachment to the past. I think we all have it, of course. But if we knew where it led, we would not be so interested in re-grasping the treasures of the past. We would be interested in going ahead into a more solar life. Gradually, the moon will wear away. And by the time, well, maybe the time is not quite specified, but if we were evolving as rapidly as Venus, which should have been the case, then by the end of the 5th scheme round, the moon would have disappeared. But maybe we're going to have to wait until the 7th round, and scheme round, that is, and which makes us stop at every planetary chain. Now we, with our solarized way of thinking, and as eventual representatives of Sirius, that type of initiation, and the sun, we have to help wear away all of these lunar habits and tendencies, which if we could but explore our subconscious mind, we would find them to be quite deleterious. We have to solarize our own nature, solarize our planet, and solarize in a way, at least help with the entire solar system. The keynote, is I think it should be a lighted house, not the lighted house, but I think we've made a mistake there, but it doesn't make any difference right now. I build a lighted house and therein dwell. Well, we're always building these surroundings, which take what we are, which is essentially infinite, and begin to finitize the infinite. The whole, if I can look at an entire universe, it is a Cancerian finite enclosure. Of course, we're not just talking about the little constellation or sign Cancer, we're talking about the archetype that led to the production of such a constellation as Cancer. And when you break out of a universe, as is the case during every pralaya, then in fact, you are into a whole new way of considering your identity. You're into a Leo phase, in a sense, or a much, much higher archetype of Leo. You're into a supra-universal state. Well, when you break out of your causal body, you're in a supra contained state or uncontained state, and much greater freedom is ours. Meanwhile, what can we do? We have to live not so much according to the material aspect of the sign Cancer, which belongs to the moon and to the, in a way, dead physical body, some kind of aggregation of old stuff. We have to live into the Neptune, which takes us out into the ocean of life. I don't know if we know what life is. I think somewhere Master DK says, look, you don't know what life is. You don't know what the will is. You don't know what being is. So when he uses those three together, I consider them to be equivalent. Life and being, and some deep release into this causative ocean. In a way, Neptune is the most important planet in this second ray major solar system, even though sometimes DK says it doesn't belong to our solar system. It has a second ray monad, and eventually that's what has to emerge out of our present solar system. I build a lighted house and therein dwell, but I would like to add, but not for too long. Otherwise, we get trapped in our virtues. There's all kinds of wonderful things in the qualities, the radiant qualities of the causal body. But eventually, they are seen to be limitations. And we do have to find a way beyond that. the pure being that we are, the life that we are, is always trying to escape from limitation. Now, maybe we don't realize that yet, but the day will come when all of this, even what has looked very good and is of good quality, seems to be a limitation. And then through some sort of destruction, we are liberated into something more capacious, if I can use that word, something wider, something greater, more encompassing, and yet more free. So there are great opportunities here in Cancer to discover what our attachments may be and to work our way free of those attachments, which I'm sure deep down we all want. Because we are spirit. We involved, as is our habit, we turned ourselves inside out, doing every universe, and we have to correct that and bring it all back together. Now, where are you? Where am I in this process? Because we have made the turn. Where are we in the process of bringing it all back together? So that, as is said in Cancer, the whole is seen as one. Now that's a tremendous statement. Despite diversity, despite 1,000,001 articulations, the wholeness is seen and understood as one, and not just intellectually, but in real experiential perception, and I would call it infuception. I wonder what it would be like, don't you? Even to spend a few hours in that state where we know that the whole is one. Words are one thing, but the experience, even if we've had the slightest little inkling of it, is something far beyond the words. Okay, friends, well, that's kind of a little introduction there. And BL, I think you usually put in the chat box where Francis's illustrations and comments can be found.
Yes, I've done that.
That's terrific. So if you want to look at what Francis has said, please go to the link that BL has provided for us. And of course, I've got to say, please pick up Francis's webinars, either on the secret doctrine or on the secret teaching of all the ages, as you will be in a position to learn a lot. And that's it, friends. We've got to keep learning, no? We must keep learning. Okay. I'm ready now to begin this pre-meditation. And remember, tomorrow, Tuya begins the actual full moon meditation with at 5:00 p.m. There might be something floating around that says a.m., but that's an error. 5:00 p.m. and the exact full moon at 6:39 and 31 seconds p.m. GMT. So you just calculate what that means for you. Because as DK says, the opportunity is there at the exact moment of the full moon, which is not there at any other time. So we're right now within a 24-hour period ahead of the actual full moon. We're in a day of dedication. And 12 hours before the full moon, we will begin receiving and holding that full moon energy. It'll be called the day of safeguarding. You know, when I do the engineering. I'm not the greatest engineer, but I was doing the engineering for Tuya's sacred pentagram. And I've got to say that I think I learned more about the extra zodiacal constellation Argo, which pertains to the first 10 degrees of Cancer, than I've ever learned before. So she's got a lot of fantastic mythology going in these sacred pentagram sessions, and the mythological angle, because it stimulates the intuition, is very important. Okay. So we can think of ourselves as the soul in incarnation. We are a projection of the angel of the presence within the personality fields. So sometimes we just think we're the personality or the elemental lives, but actually we are an extended soul consciousness within the various elemental vehicles. And when it comes to the full moon work, we begin to withdraw our consciousness from those personality elementals, from those vehicles, and at least imaginatively, we enter deeply into the presence of the soul, or let's call it the angel of the presence on its own level. But essentially, we're entering into that which is known and understood within the causal body of accumulated virtue. And that's a lot more than mental speculation. So we try, as DK says, is necessary and advisable to establish our sense of identity as a soul within that field of light, love, and spiritual power. At the very least, we should be beginning to see things as the mind held steady in the light, and to develop within ourselves the mind as it is in Christ. And a whole different perspective will open up before us. Now, as a looking at things as if we were the soul, we begin to merge ourselves as a soul with the group soul, because let's try to feel it. The soul is group conscious. And at least imaginatively, we unite in soul with the spiritually minded people of the world, the men and women of goodwill, some of whom are also members of the new group of world servers. We try to unite in soul wherever goodwill is being expressed. And we try to feel our oneness in that respect with these progressive people who are learning that there is more to life than the personality. But we can carry it even further, really, and realize there is but one soul of all humanity. And whether people are in the body or out of the body, they are part of one great unity. So that the Tibetan tells us in Rule 5 of the rays and the initiations, there is no my soul or thy soul, but only the soul. And we try to make to ourselves the following declaration, a meaningful, deeply meaningful part of our life, namely, naught is but me. Now that's a very synthetic statement, and it has nothing to do with liking and disliking, attraction and repulsion, similarity and difference. Naught is but me. You really have to get under all those things that appear to be. Into the life from which they sprang, into the pure being. Naught is but me. It is a statement beyond quality, beyond the attractiveness or repulsiveness of quality. It's a statement rooted in the pure being which we are. Now, technically what's happening is the qualities of the soul are being drawn into a pool of retained energies around the mental unit. All 5 aspects of the soul, the energies of the knowledge petals, love petals, sacrifice petals, synthesis petals, and even from the jewel in the lotus. And the rainbow bridge rises in many colors through that pool of retained energies. Colored mainly for us in this group work by the indigo ray, but never yet for us quite reaching the Buddhic permanent atom or the atmic permanent atom or the monad. One day, yes, but not right now. So we imagine that we're projecting through this largely indigo antikarana, that beam of light, as we think internally, the word of power, not I see the greatest light. We think I see the greatest light. And we can sound the Om as we inwardly work with the word of power. Om. Om. I see the greatest light. This is penetrating into the world where the masters habitually focus their awareness, but we do not. And as we project, we begin to feel the presence of the Lodge of Masters, of the great spiritual hierarchy of our planet. We're moving into the impersonal world and bypassing simply the transpersonal world of the egoic lotus. And we want to be the co-workers of these graduates of the School of Humanity, and we want to offer our cooperation and our gratitude to the elders who have gone beyond our particular stage and are wielding certain energies to really help us. So we salute the hierarchy, of whom the Christ is the center. Sometimes it's said he is the head of the hierarchy, sometimes the heart of the hierarchy. Om. Salutations to the Christ, the Master of all masters, the teacher alike of angels and of men. Oh, salutations to the triangle of masters with whom we most closely work along this line of development. Masters Moria, KH, and DK. Oh, salutations to Master Moria, the head of all esoteric schools and organizations. Oh, salutations to the Master Kutumi, whose ashram is most intimately involved in preparing the way for the reappearance of his brother, Lord Maitreya, and who will be the Bodhisattva Christ of the age of Capricorn. Oh, salutations to the Master Jwalkul, the messenger at the present time of the hierarchy, and the trainer for so many disciples on all the rays for the first and second initiations, and in some case even the third. Oh, salutations to your own master as you know him to be or conceive him to be. Oh, salutations to the entire spiritual hierarchy. Now we imaginatively raise our thought to however we conceive Shambhala to be, the center where the will of God is known. And with deepest reverence and in all humility, we attempt, identified as a group, to attune to the presence of Sanat Kumara, focused at the center of Shambhala. And inwardly, we sound a long but silent Om as we imagine the group imbued with his energy. So here in Shambhala, the energies are assembled for right application and distribution on many levels. Now we're going to, as if, pull ourselves together into one point. A point of light and love and power. A point in which all of us are participating. And we imagine that point hovering above a golden pathway which leads to the very center of an indigo sphere, remembering that our logos is called the blue logos. And within that sphere, we are imagining that we meet the presence of Master DK. So that pathway, golden pathway, shortens and shortens, with us traveling with it together, all of us at a point, until we enter in. The pathway disappears, we enter into the indigo blue disk. And we try to get the feel of what that really is all about. And there we become as if outposts of the Master's consciousness. And with the help of Master DK, we will think about the different rulers and the different levels of the constellation sign Cancer, and try to get very much the feel of the presence of that sign and that particular type of light, and what it can mean to us as we approach now the full moon, uh, less than 24 hours away. So we think about now, with Master DK's help, at least imagined help, of the rulers of the sign Cancer. The moon, it's the exoteric ruler, and we might think of it as, in one way, as veiling Vulcan. Of course, from a certain perspective, we always look for the moon in our chart as veiling either Vulcan, Neptune, or Uranus. But then we think of Neptune as the esoteric ruler, opening the emotional nature to the influences of love and compassion. Though Neptune, we must not forget, is also the sponsor or director of storms upon the sea, the astral sea. And then we think of Neptune as the hierarchical ruler, imbuing the consciousness with a sense of buddhi, intuition, and eventually with the power of identification, which is coming from, really, from the monad, giving us the realization of oneness, for Neptune melts all the boundaries, and Christ is symbolically Neptune, and that's why he knows, in a boundaryless way, what is within man. Nothing blocks the path. So first, we ponder on the moon, the mother of the form, in relation to Cancer, conveying the ability to build the form, especially the etheric physical nature, and associated with the astral and mental bodies as well, but particularly the moon as one of the 5 non-sacred planets has to do with the outermost form. So we have to improve that form. and open it to the light and the love which come from above. We have to purify the form. So let us sound the Om as we realize that for ourselves and for our groups, we can purify the form. Oh. And this will lead to much improvement of manifestation upon the etheric physical plane. The moon has to be overcome, but the symbolism behind the moon has to be utilized as well. Then we think of Neptune in relation to Cancer, conveying, when functioning properly and properly directed, the power to refine and sensitize and calm the astral body, rendering it receptive to love and compassion of the Buddhic plane. So we open in the silence to that stream of Neptunian energy. The moon really, or rather, Neptune really rules in so many different um, vibratory levels, the astral body, the soul and its love petals, and also the one of the synthesis petals, the Buddhic plane and its intuition, the monadic level, from which our pilgrimage descends, and even then, the cosmic astral plane, Neptune is very active. So we think about where our groups might need Neptune, and we try to channel that energy into the group life. In this case, for greater buddhi. Oh. It can enter, and it can make a difference But we're not finished with Neptune, because it has a transcendental power, hierarchically considered, to reveal the all-pervading presence of God, whatever God we choose to focus upon, and at first, our Logos, then Solar Logos, and then something much greater and beyond reach, Cosmic Logos. So there is a sense of the life within the form, the heart of life within all forms on the cosmic level, the hierarchical level. And Neptune does indeed, with Jupiter, touch the monadic plane, where there is a reflection of its role on the cosmic astral plane. And we all need this. It is salvation from identifying as being, as life, as bliss. It is salvation. So we want to think of where our groups may need this life, this being. And although so many groups are so far away from understanding what that could mean, we still channel or allow to be channeled this hierarchical Neptune into our group life. Oh. Groups today are filled with conflict and with criticism and all of these non-unitive states. But at a time like this, as the full moon approaches, we can begin to think of what it would be otherwise. If this hierarchical Neptune could pervade the group members. With its second ray monad. Maybe even now you can begin to feel the difference. It's all part of the great solar logos. These planets represent different chakras, and some of them permanent atoms within the personal structure of the solar logos. Mostly those are just words, but the day comes when the quality of the energy begins to be felt. The great solar logos, going through his second major solar system and his fifth sequential solar system, and using increasingly the second ray monad of Neptune. We're in a great love system. Our God is a consuming fire, the fire of love. And we can be consciously, experientially a part of that. It's this power of identification which we so sorely need, and which will be experienced widely throughout the solar system by the end of this particular solar system. At least the fourth cosmic initiation will be taken, and that has to do with the monad, and Neptune has the monadic ray, which is the same as that being expressed by our solar logos in this solar system. But even a great planetary logos or solar logos does not know with certainty what his achievements will be by the time of the onset of the Maha Pralaya. It could be the fifth degree, and in that case, much will depend on the progress of the earth. The light of Cancer is the light within the form. And as DK says, this is the diffused light of substance itself. The dark light of matter, referred to in the secret doctrine, it is the light awaiting stimulation coming from the soul light. So the story of Cancer is to go from the hidden and unexpressed into ever more radiance as the full light power of its hidden light is evoked. And this leads all of us one day to shine as in the Transfiguration, the Christ shone. Now we're working more and more with the mantra of cancer. And we have some days in which to do it, especially as the full moon itself approaches at 6:39 and 31 seconds GMT. It's a light experiment that's going on the earth, and eventually a great station of light will be produced in the heavens. But of course, we have to overcome many tendencies towards opaqueness along the way. So we ponder. Build a lighted house. Many temples are built as lighted houses. I build a lighted house, and therein dwell. Most of us dwell within the personality, but if we can make it ever lighter, we will find that we begin to dwell within the lighted house of soul, and beyond that, of triad, and beyond that, of monad. And there are stations we will pass through beyond that. I build a lighted house, and therein dwell. But remember, though we have to build and beautify, we do outgrow the lighted house we are building. Because what we are as spirit refuses to be contained by that which prevents its full expression. And time after time, universe after universe, this involution followed by the rebuilding process goes on. Maybe for some of us, the building of a radiant personality which acquiesces to the soul is a sufficient goal. And some of us will be working on building the soul body, but that also requires work within the personality. I build the lighted house, and therein dwell. So where indeed are we in this building process? Not completed, of course. I build a lighted house, and therein dwell. And the building of soul and personality in right relation takes place simultaneously, as does their disappearance at the time when the fourth initiation can be taken. We cannot relent in this building. We must proceed with, as DK tells us, no let up and no leeway. And then we will embody and then seek freedom from the embodiment. But the embodiment will elevate the materials which are brought into the embodiment. Because being in an archetypal relationship with other elements does help the lesser lives rise. I build a lighted house, and therein dwell. Well, where does it all come from? We can't determine that, but in relatively local space within our particular galaxy, there is a great super cosmic logos called we call it the one about whom naught may be said, though there are many ones about whom we certainly can't say a thing. And maybe the word may tells us we should not. But the zodiac of constellations is the heart in the head center of the one about whom naught may be said. And as we know from our own head, heart in the head center, very high petals with great power are there found. Now, I think that Cancer might go forth particularly towards the cosmic logos in which our sun, our solar logos, is a heart center. Cancer has to do with the central solar plexus. That's one of its major points of focus. And so this great sign, I presume, this constellation, affects the 7 solar systems of which ours is one. It also has much to do with the Pleiades and with the planet Venus. But let us suppose that energy flows into the cosmic logos, of which our little solar system is a part. And then via our solar logos, as a great heart of the consuming fire of love, the planets Vulcan and the moon, of course, is a dead planet, but covering, let us say, Vulcan, veiling, and Neptune are both involved. And from Vulcan and from Neptune, there is a flow of energy to our little Earth as part of the Earth scheme. And all this flow goes into Shambhala. and thus stimulates you as a monad, and it passes as well through the hierarchy with its great Lord, the Christ, sometimes the head, sometimes the heart of that hierarchy, and through your soul nature, that is, through the ashram with which you are increasingly affiliated. We don't want to go too far. We are drawn to a particular ashram, and that flow from the heart and the head center is making its way all the way down. Vitalizing the asynthesis petal, vitalizing the love petals, vitalizing other petals which carry the Neptune vibration within our egoic lotus, until at a time like this, Cancer and Neptune, with a definite change of energy from Gemini, Cancer and Neptune can be felt. A deep silence begins to be felt, and maybe a long silent Om for us as we feel the growing oneness of things. The whole is seen as one. It's a definite change of energy, and we want to get inside it, and wherever you may be living on the globe, the full moon is approaching, and so whether the hour is convenient or inconvenient for you, do your best to usher in that moment of transmission, because in doing that, we are really building the causal body. Now, let's think. Somewhere in the world, according to your own discretion, are problems, or a problem particularly, which needs to be solved, especially through the application now of the Cancer and Neptunian energy. Ponder on where and for what reason you would send this Cancerian Neptunian energy to help relieve that particular problem. Right now, there are many countries in which divisions between older souls and younger souls exist, between those who live according to the demands of the dweller and those who are trying to live according to the demands of the soul. Can you see how, if the whole is seen as one, this tremendous cleavage, which can be the result of Geminian energy, could be healed? The biggest cleavage of all, the angel of the presence of humanity versus the dweller on the threshold for humanity. So let us use these fusing energies to put into a state of oneness, which we register the divided, conflicted uh, arena of combat. Oh. That maybe we can contribute to the fusing under the right circumstances of humanity's dweller, made rightly responsive to humanity's angel of the presence. One cannot just leave the past behind without resolving the unresolved issues of the past. If in Cancer with Saturn we pay the penalties of incarnation, as DK tells us, then we're also going to be paying the planetary penalties as well. But we must resolve the unfinished business of the past. Pleiades, Cancer, Venus. That's the triangle. and we cannot let the past dominate us. Thank you, friends. We will think about, as we pronounce the great invocation. I want to make sure you see it. And here is the great formula to pull everything together in the right way, so that instead of division and combat, hatred, separateness, we've seen it all arise as the result of too much focus upon the personality. Instead of that, the unity, the oneness begins to occur. And we see it. The whole is seen as one. So we'll close then with the great invocation, remembering that the full moon tomorrow is at 6:39:31 p.m. and Atuya begins the full moon broadcast at 5 p.m. GMT. From the point of light within the mind of God, let light stream forth into the minds of men. Let light descend on earth from the mind of God to the minds of men. From the point of love within the heart of God, let love stream forth into the hearts of men. May Christ return to earth. From the center where the will of God is known, let purpose guide the little wills of men, the purpose which the masters know and serve. From the center which we call the race of men, let the plan of love and light work out, and may it seal the door where evil dwells. Let light and love and power restore the plan on earth. Om. 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 So, in just about 20 hours, we'll begin with the actual Cancer full moon service meditation. It'll be a YouTube broadcast. Meanwhile, let's hold our point of tension and get the most we can from the infusion of these Cancerian energies, which we should be feeling more and more. So, love and many blessings from Tuya and me and the whole group of communicators and friends of the Moria Federation, USR, SRI. Let's go deeply now, friends, into the Cancerian energies. Thank you for being here and meditating with me, with all of us. And tomorrow's another day, at least for us, because it's about midnight here. All the best, and we'll be talking to you.